You mentioned CM Punk. I got to ask you about CM Punk. All the training he had, top trainers for 2 years, dedicating himself to MMA. With that performance, we knew that his chances of losing were going to be likely, but are you surprised at his overall performance?
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised by how little he showed. I guess one part of my mind, I thought that the fight would go exactly like that. He would just go out there and get dominated. But like, you know, you mentioned that he had been training with Duke Rufus. He'd been training with some of the Gracie brothers, and he had been doing that before he was even, you know, brought into the UFC. So I think there was an idea that he was already better than what people imagined. And I got a lot of people ask me questions when they were showing the countdown shows, and they would show him training, and he was doing okay, and he'd beat some guys on the show, but then people were asking me if they thought that was a work, and they just brought guys in to lose for him. You know, I think you can't expect somebody to train for 1 or 2 years and be world class at anything. It's just not going to happen. And especially somebody who's coming from a situation where they didn't have like an athletic background. You know, from what I understand, it wasn't as if Punk hadn't competed in mixed martial arts or wrestling or anything like that. He hadn't competed, you know, in soccer and basketball or anything of that. He had done professional wrestling. So to try to put somebody into a mindset where they have to now win, you know, against all costs, or that's the main goal, and they've never done that before, you know, you can't expect somebody to come out the winner in a high pressure situation like that.
Now he has, I believe, another 1 or 2 fights on his contract. Do you think it's likely that those matches are going to happen?
They keep going back and forth. It seems like 1 week Dana White's saying, you know, they're looking for a fight for Punk, and then the next week it's that there's nothing on the horizon. I think really the big issue is that if the UFC cuts him or lets him go, that Bellator or somebody else would scoop him up and sign him. And I think that's really the biggest problem that they have with letting him go. I think he's doing some reality show or something right now as well, and he's representing the UFC on it. So I don't know if they're going to push him in that avenue or what.
Now, as someone that loves wrestling and is a wrestler too, how do you think that makes the wrestling business look? Because there are some tough people in wrestling, but here's a multiple-time world champion just getting his ass handed to him by a relative unknown.
Yeah, it's tough, especially, I mean, here in 2017, we know that they're not the same thing. Your professional wrestling acumen doesn't necessarily translate to MMA, you know, and vice versa. You could be a great MMA fighter, be an absolutely terrible wrestler. We've seen that happen as well. So they're not correlated, you know, directly in any sense. But you know, it does. I think it makes the UFC look bad, or I'm sorry, not the UFC, but it makes wrestling look bad in a way, because he was a champion over multiple promotions. He was really well known to a lot of people, and then to come in and lose like that, you know, I guess it looks bad, but I don't know that there was a huge backlash. I think the fact that he was out of wrestling for a few years kind of helped with that as well. You know, he had been not forgotten, but out of the limelight. So.
And what did you think of, at the end of the fight, the words that CM Punk said to his opponent? It seemed very bizarre.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure about getting your ass beat and then giving the guy advice, you know, right after. It seems like a way to almost put yourself over, I guess, get yourself over in the eyes of the fans. Like, you know, you're the bigger star, but he was passing the torch to him. But it really wasn't his time or place, you know, to do that. It's not a professional wrestling contest, you know. I don't know. I wasn't in there in this situation, so it's easy to cast doubt afterwards, but not my cup of tea.